Derivatives, high-frequency trading, computer algorithms, and government corruption are all reasons we could face a collapse in the near future. But let's put those aside for today and look at the sheer economic fundamentals. Why the biggest crash in history is guaranteed. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Let's take a look at this out of Georgetown University. It says the model of the labor market that presumed entry at age 18 and an exit at age 65 is obsolete. And we'll go into the reasons why that's the case today. We'll cover a few points from that. And essentially what you need to know from this article specifically is that things have already been changing. We're already progressing in this direction. This is not some sort of soothsayer, fortune teller kind of action. We are looking at this happening right now. Let's get into this out of the Wall Street Journal. Younger generation faces a savings deficit. So before I get to the highlighted portion, I just want to say this. Post-recession thrifty ways fade amid the weak jobs market and hefty student debt. So I'll get into those issues in a moment here. I'll just cover this. Adults under the age of 35, the so-called millennial generation, currently have a savings rate of negative 2%. Years before, people would have savings rates that were many, many multiples higher than what they are today for these young people. And this spells disaster for the future because savings brings on a real economy. People think that savings are bad, or at least, the Bernankes and the Yellens suggest that savings are bad, but they do not, because when you have savings, they take those savings and they will invest it. Maybe they'll buy a new home, maybe they'll open up a business, so on and so forth. You can't have a negative savings rate and have a strong economy unless that economy is being pumped up by government stimulus, and that's how they're doing this today. But of course, this is not going good, especially for the millennials. Let's get into this right now. Out of CNN, it said student loans, credit cards, many millennials feel as if they're drowning in debt. In fact, 4 in 10 millennials say they are overwhelmed by their debt. These are young individuals who should not have accumulated all this debt. But it all starts with the student loans. There are trillions of dollars in student loans in the U.S. alone. That is such an enormous number. And of course, it goes along with everything else, the national debt and the global debt and all these derivatives on top of it. The debt is accumulating in every single category. Okay, and also what they mentioned here is this is nearly double the number of baby boomers. I get a lot of emails. I do a lot of consultations with baby boomers, and they are, in fact, unfortunately, in trouble in many cases. And what I like to discuss with them is how to get out of this mess. And now we have the millennials in the same situation. In fact, even worse. So this brings me to other issues here. Half of college grads still relying on the parents' money. This is out of the Arizona right here. And basically what it's saying is that without their parents, they're unable to afford their basic essentials. And that's why we have so many people on the food stamps. That's why we have so many people on all these other assistance programs given out by the government, putting a larger burden on them. So if I go on, right here out of the Wall Street Journal, once again, just showing you class of 2014 average debt per borrower in each year's graduating class. And it doesn't take a genius to figure out that essentially year over year we are having an increase, and a significant increase at that. We're going over $30,000 in inflation-adjusted terms, and look how dramatic that is. The individual graduating from their college cannot afford this. They cannot find a job. The McDonald's was hiring cashiers with university degrees at $9 an hour. That's the future of America, if you want to know. You have retail jobs, temporary jobs, and a lot of debt. Let's go right here. Millennials face an uphill climb out of the Wall Street Journal. More demanding jobs coupled with recession have postponed young Americans going into the workforce. This is a big problem for them. Right here, you're looking at them again, taking those temporary jobs, anything they can get. Essentially, they have a large accumulation of debt and need to pay it off. This is not supposed to happen. You're supposed to graduate from school with little to no debt and then find their way into a good job and be able to pay it off. But that is not happening. Right here, out of census.gov, home ownership rate is declining, and you can see this with both sides. The home ownership rate is also how many people are renting. Both numbers really showing exactly what's happening in the economy when people are unable to afford a home. It's pretty simple to look at these kind of statistics and realize the trouble that people are in. Out of the BLS, it said 1.5 million earned exactly the prevailing federal minimum wage of $7.25 per hour, and 1.8 million had wages below the federal minimum. Now, this is, of course, not for everybody, but just in this instance here, what I wanted to mention was that people are making at or below the minimum wage. This amount of money is not able to fund a family. You can't have this. That's why people are taking on 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet. No wonder they can't pay down their debt for those who are employed, because the amount of money they're making simply doesn't make up for all their bills. Now, of course, they could be squandering the money and so on and so forth, but not everyone is like that. A lot of people are really out there. They're really for real struggling, and this is becoming an increasing problem, particularly in this generation. We have a lot of problems in the near future, that's for sure. Total annual cost of Social Security. This is what I wanted to get to right here. We're looking at the federal government programs basically burdening every year over year a much, much bigger problem. And this statistic goes up to about 2011, starting in 1967, and it's a straight line upward, and it doesn't surprise anybody. The baby boomers are now taking in that money, and you have those individuals who can't even find work now, the millennials, who aren't paying in to this unfunded liability. Let's get into that. I wrote about it in my book. Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid are considered, quote, unfunded liabilities or off-balance sheet. They don't come up in the official statistics, and they are still forms of debt. The government owes this money, but of course they don't put that on the books. If they showed how much we really owe, we're going to be in big trouble. And that's the way they do this. They always hide the statistics because they don't want to show the truth. The truth is going to obviously set in a wave of crashes to happen all around the world. And essentially right here, with increasing levels of federal debt, unfunded liabilities, and aging populations around the world, many countries have a serious problem on their hands. That is very, very true. It's particularly evident in the United States, but this is definitely the case all around. And right here, what I wanted to finish off with was this. Out of Reuters, nearly 36 million people are slaves. Qatar in focus. So this is a global index. And the reason I mention this isn't necessarily the article's information itself, but wanted to mention how much we are basically slaves by the central bankers, by the government, by the technocrats, by all of those who control these government structures around, these bankers and all of those in the mega corporations and the shadow banking and everyone who sits in those shadows. They are controlling us and essentially making us slaves to the almighty dollar. And many of us are struggling, and we need that money to survive. So some of these people, 50 million in the US, are requiring food stamps. If they do not have those food stamps, they will undoubtedly be in big trouble. So we're looking at this being a different way of slavery, and that is economic slavery, how they put a stranglehold against us, on us, and we suffer, and we will do whatever it takes to survive. And that's what's happening right now, where we are really seeing massive increases in poverty, unemployment, and then we will have civil unrest, upheaval, and chaos in the streets. It is something that concerns me very much. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. Thank you to every single one of you for all your emails, all of the kind words that you're giving me. It really helps me out a lot. I'm going to continue on. My goal, I will tell you right now, my goal is 10,000 subscribers by the end of this year, 2014. So we'll see if we can get there. I really appreciate all of you, and we will talk to you soon. And don't forget to become an insider. That's where over now 1,100 subscribers are on there, and that is at themoneygps.com. You scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.